the Frederick thing is interesting because he also adds snarl, which you need. This lineup needs that. He provides it. He is on a track to be that kind of player that people want in the NHL now, where bigger, power forwardy, but also has skill, can contribute, good in their own zone, like good with kind of any situation. He's morphing into that quickly, and it's 2 straight seasons now of him being real good. He's not a throw-in player anymore. He is very much a valuable member of this team, and I think when the playoffs start, you want a guy like him in your lineup, in a specific role, thriving. And welcome into the Bruins beat on CLNS Media. My name is Evan Marinofsky, and today I am joined by the great Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. You must be over the moon. You just got back from Bermuda. Great late January spot. I imagine it was a time and a half, I would assume.
65 degrees, got some golf in. It was great, Evan. No complaints at all.
Was it beach weather at all or no?
I mean, like 65, a little windy. Like I didn't go to the beach at all, but the fact that you go out in the evening wearing shorts and a polo, I think that's a victory in and of itself, right?
I was gonna say, I feel like that is the dream. If you can just be anywhere in the winter where you can put some shorts and like a polo shirt on or a t-shirt, I feel like that's bliss.
And if you wanted to wear a quarter zip, you could, but if you're feeling dangerous, you can just go with the shirt. You know, like you have the options there. The world's your oyster. That's the perfect kind of weather for it.
It is, and it looked great. The golfing must have been awesome. Was it packed? Were there a ton of people down there?
Literally, like we had no one behind us for like 5 holes for the entire time. So I went with a few buddies down there for that. And yeah, no one behind us, no one really bothering us. So I myself am not very talented, but when you have no pressure behind you, you can take your time and just suck throughout the course, right? So
exactly, hit a few mulligans.
Good times had by all. So no complaints.
That's good. You know what though? Like credit to you and your buddies. The trip made it out of the group chat. That's a big
true.
step. Like a lot of times, the trip gets talked about every year. My friends and I say, "Oh, we got to do a golf trip in the middle of winter." And it never comes together. So maybe I need to get a little inspiration from you and just make it happen. I think that needs to be what takes place. But anyways, the Bruins, I think, are heading in... you and the Bruins are heading in different directions on your way home. You were heading back here to Boston. They are probably flocking to Bermuda and the Bahamas and all different kinds of warm tropical places, hopefully, as they have a little bit of a break here. Until next week, so it's a well-earned break, and they went into that break pretty good, pretty damn good, laying a nice old beatdown on Philadelphia on Saturday afternoon, 6-2. Crazy first period. Bruins scored a bunch. Again, Philly's a pretty good team this year. Like that's they've been maybe one of the most surprising teams in the NHL, and to go in there right before a break, too. Like, I know you want to go into the break strong, but Connor, remember back in the day in school when it was the end of the, you'd be going into like a winter break or, a Thanksgiving break. And those last couple, like that last day or so, you'd be like, I really don't want to do any work. I just want to go into the break. They didn't do that. Credit to them. They finished strong. They curb stomped the Flyers and then go into this break riding high.
Yeah, no, it was, again, professional win. I think it's what we've seen quite a bit since this post-Christmas kind of surge that they've been in. As you said, you look at the scenarios, the fact that they've been playing a lot of games as of late. Last game before a long break against a pretty hungry team that, John Tortorella is not the guy to put, his foot off the gas. Like, there's going to be no malaise going into it for them based on just the way the Flyers are playing right now. And the Bruins stomped them, right? I mean, it helps me that David Pastrnak, who demolishes Philadelphia whenever he gets to play them. So that certainly helps. But it was, again, I think it was just a testament just of how strong this team is playing right now. That, you're missing a few guys. DeBrusk wasn't in the lineup, a few other players. But JVR has a 3-point game. Danton Heinen scores a goal, right? Charlie Coyle gets a goal. Pavel Zacha, I think, has 2 assists. He had that sick setup for McAvoy's goal. It was pretty much a tap-in for McAvoy there. Like, that again shows you, yes, it helps when you've got a guy like Pasternak who opens the scoring with that nasty shot to open the game. But the fact that once again you're having so many other guys get involved all across the lineup, it's a good sign. It just shows you that kind of wherever they are, whatever lineup or way that Montgomery kind of shuffles these lines around, you're having guys contribute and all kind of land on the score sheet. It's very, very encouraging just of how they're playing as one unit right now, it feels like.
It is. And, it's interesting. Last time the Bruins went into a break, they were struggling. It was the Christmas break, and, there was no offense. And it's been a complete 180 in the month since, where we've talked about this a number of times. But as you said, different guys are stepping up all over the lineup. And, Pasternak is far and away an MVP candidate, all that stuff. But you got guys like Coyle and Marchand who are over 40 points. Heinen's, as you said, been producing. Pavel Zacha. We know this, but every time he does it, I'm always blown away. His hockey sense, his ability to find guys in the offensive zone and in offensive zone entries is so impressive. And I'm such a fan. Trent Frederick too, like what he has done. We'll get to Trent Frederick in a little bit. Trent Frederick, according to you know what? I don't want to tease it. We'll save that for a little bit later. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves, because once I say it, we'll start talking about it.
Yes.
I want to keep it in the middle of the episode. But I was taking a look at the standings, Connor. I was looking at the NHL standings on Monday, and the Bruins are tied with the Vancouver Canucks for the most points in the NHL. So it's pretty fun. That's the Canucks again. We've said it, a cool. I almost said Super Bowl, a cool Stanley Cup matchup. But are you worried at all that the Bruins are on a President's Trophy winning pace, and when the season ends, like, you almost have to think if they're on track to win it with 5 games left, you got to think they try to lose a couple, and just to be like, yeah, we didn't get it. See, we're going into the playoffs, not the best team again.
Yeah, I mean, probably if you're a Bruins fan or anyone who's well aware of how last year ended, maybe that doesn't help your case in terms of you just have the target on your back, you have all those things. That being said, I mean, for this team, I don't know if it's that much of that of just like, we know what happened last year. We must fall out of the number 1 seed in the NHL. But I also think you look at the way this team is constructed and the fact that they're at their best when it's, so many guys pulling on the rope. I feel like if you're the Bruins, you'd rather be happy with a lot of guys playing confidently, right? Like, you don't want to be going into the playoffs with, losing 4 out of 5 and Pasternak's the only guy generating offense. Would you rather that? Would you rather be, going in on a high note with Zacha feeling confident, Charlie Coyle, potting a few goals, Heinen playing well, JVR doing well, Jake DeBrusk going in on a heater, Elias Lindholm feeling confident about his game. Like, I think when you look at this team and how important it is to have so many guys at key cogs in the lineup playing at a high level, rather you keep that trend going, even, as damning as it might be to finish in that number 1 seed, I think the overall confidence of so many players is so key as to what makes this team great. Because if, we've seen it when 1 or 2 guys goes on a huge kind of slump here, their confidence is down, whether it's DeBrusk or Frederick or, a top 4 defenseman, or even one of your goalies. You look at this Bruins team, right? Would you want one of your goalies in a rut going into the playoffs when we know that most likely the best option is keeping that rotation in place, as risky as that is and how tough it is to kind of practice it in principle in an actual scenario? I still think, yes, you maybe don't want that President's Trophy hanging over you, having that target on your back. But that being said, I feel like that's the case every year, right? Every team goes in thinking they can beat any other team out there. All comes down to matchups as opposed to the label of where a team falls. So if I'm the Bruins, I'm not shying away from that number 1 seed if it's right there in their lap. But rather them keep on winning, feeling good about their game, and having this entire lineup playing at a high level, as opposed to, I don't think you want to be the Tampa Bay Lightning where it's like, all right, we got a couple of Joes in the 3rd and 4th line, but Kucherov himself can lift us there, and Vasilevsky. Like, Bruins aren't really built that way this year, especially. They want to be at their best going into the playoffs.
And I think people forget, last year I remember the Bruins kind of went for it in that final game against Montreal when, again, there was no reason to, but Bergeron played, and he kind of got hurt in that game. But they won that game, and then they won the first 3 of the first 4 games in the playoffs. And I know it didn't matter because they lost, but they didn't, start out and just get killed in that series. They shot themselves in the foot halfway through, and things unraveled. But again, they finished strong in that season. And again, they still won the first 3 of their first 4 games. The President's Trophy thing is weird to me because, again, your chances of winning the cup are so small anyways. Like, you're one of 16 teams still. Like, to me, like, even if you're in that first seed, it doesn't matter a heck of a lot. But I agree with you. It comes down to matchups. Who are you getting? And again, you look at last year, the Florida Panthers weren't really a last seed in the East type of team. They should have been a lot better throughout the season. They had some issues during the season, which had them in that final spot. But looking back, now seeing them as the second team in the Atlantic, who, they have a good lineup and a good roster, it's like, wow, I don't know how they were that final seed in the East.
Right.
One more thing on the President's Trophy stuff. When I was talking to Pete Blackburn about this on last week, we were talking a lot about how expectations have kind of changed a little bit. Because going into this year, we talked a lot about, they're not saying it's a bridge year, but it kind of is. Poitras's in the lineup. He was going to potentially be in the top 6. Beecher's in. You got a lot younger guys throughout. You might get a look at Lowry at some point, but especially up front, you got Geeky is kind of a prove himself guy. Van Riemsdyk, these are value, prove themselves kind of players. And you don't know what you're going to get. You had them in second in the Atlantic and winning a round. I had them in third, losing in the first round. I've since changed it to, I think, either they'll finish in second or first and make it past the first round. But at any rate, they're first in the NHL right now. You should not be out in the first round. You should not be out. You should be making a deep run with where they're at in the standings. And I think that has sort of changed expectations a little bit. And it kind of hits at them sending down Beecher and Lowry in the sense that, yes, of course, they don't have to clear waivers, but also Boquist and his veteran presence and, going with older guys on that back end maybe makes a little bit more sense considering they're kind of pushing for a cup now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think does probably change your expectation. And again, I think it's all about taking a proactive look at this year and the opportunity without putting all your cards on, putting all your chips on the table in terms of, I think we've talked about this before, but I still don't think this is a team, the way it's constructed, and especially how the long-term outlook of this team is, where you should be giving up more future first or anything like that. And I don't think that's even a likely scenario, just on the fact the Bruins have no cap space right now. Like, I just don't think they're going to be very aggressive this deadline. And again, like, look at the way this team has played. Yes, you can make the argument that he's another top 4 guy, another top 6 player. If you want a center for the future and you want a guy like Lindholm, maybe you go after him. But the way his team playing right now, it almost feels like I don't think you should besmirch the Bruins for being like, we've got a pretty good team right now. They're equipped, and if they're playing at the highest level, they can win a round or two just off of really good goaltending and defense alone. And if guys like DeBrusque get hot, or a JVR or Heinen or Frederick, if any one of those guys jumps in and adds that scoring output, you can easily win a round or 2 or 3, right? Like, just the way they are without having to really augment your group and sacrifice future assets. Like, the Bruins are already in a pretty good spot when you have all this cap space coming up this upcoming offseason. You got a lot of guys already signed long-term. So it's almost like it's better to probably stay the course, run it with this very, surprising team. We have so many guys playing at a high level. And then, reassessing your priorities during this offseason as opposed to maybe going full throttle and doing anything like that during this season at least.
What other team in this market said they were going to go full throttle? No one would ever say that, right?
I forget. No, yeah, I don't know. That could blow up in your face if you say it. So I don't think anyone would want to say that.
No, anyone who's in that position would never want to or do that ever. I mean,
no.
You eat your words. No one would ever think to do that.
Yeah.
But something that you do want to think to do is go to our friends over at FanDuel.
Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today and you get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
So you hit on it, the deadline. It's coming. People, it's going to start ramping up, more trade rumors. Teams are going to make some big moves, and this happens every year. Bruins fans rightfully say, hey, when are the Bruins going to make a big move? Want to bolster our team? Other teams are doing it. It's an arms race. You got to keep up with everybody. I remember last year, our tone kind of changed on the deadline because we're like, all right, wait, this is the last dance. Put the chips to the middle of the table. They did that. Wasn't Sweeney's fault why it didn't work out. Just wasn't. But The Athletic recently ran a story, 6 trade ideas for Elias Lindholm from Calgary, the center who has been on the trade block forever and is on an expiring deal and has been linked to the Bruins for a long time because of fit. He would fit here, two-way center, all that stuff. So the trade proposed by The Athletic was a 2025 first-round pick, Matt Poitras, and Trent Frederick for Elias Lindholm.
No.
And I looked at that, Connor, and I said, no fucking way. Sorry, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And that's not holding on to assets. That's not, hoarding younger players, because I think we both agree with a lot of prospects, sometimes you do have to fish or cut bait. Those are 2 prospects. Never mind the first round pick, but those are 2 prospects who have, Poitras's got a very high ceiling. Frederick is finding his groove as an NHLer.
It's a line driver. Yeah.
It's exactly like, to me, take out the first round pick is also dumb, but you don't want to give those up. But just the prospects themselves, no. So I assume you agree.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, not only the fact that you also then have to pay him a long-term contract. And again, is Elias Lindholm a great player? Yes. Is he a top 6 centerman for the future for your team? Absolutely. But I think you're in a pretty good spot right now if you're the Bruins, where you're kind of operating with some leverage here, because the center position, as we said, pretty much since this, the first month of the year, center position has not been an area of weakness for this team, right? Between Coyle,
Agreed.
Zacha, Poitras, Frederick, Beecher, Boquist, whatever. Again, is it the flashiest group? No. Is it Bergeron and Krejci? Fuck no, of course not. But you're not going to have that again. But it's hard to overlook those numbers in terms of what they're giving you, right? They're whatever it is, it's working for how they're playing with those guys down the middle now. Does that mean you don't want to look at the center market at all? No, of course not. If Lindholm's a free agent this year, maybe you look at him then. If, a few years down the road and the Sharks are moving hurdle and they want to eat some of that money and you take some of it just to get them off your books, maybe you address that. The white whale for me, of Clayton Keller, when the Coyotes eventually run out of cap space and they can't sign him, they put him on the market. Maybe that's the situation, right? But I don't think this year the Bruins have to be one of those desperate teams that are going to have to give up more than what is probably required just to get a guy to fix an area of the team that isn't an issue right now, this current season, right? You want to say, do you want 34-year-old Coyle in a few years being your top 6 centerman? Maybe not, right? Again, he's kind of proven a lot of people wrong so far, but for this year especially, I don't view it as being something where you have to go above and beyond to outbid other teams for him. Because again, whether it's a first-round pick, which you got to stop doing it, this is a perfect year to finally not give up a first-round pick for this season. But when you add in the fact that Poitras is a center who, again, even though he's gone through some ups and downs, as is expected for a 19-year-old kid, still has really high ceiling, a lot to like about his game. And then you add in the fact that Trent Frederick, it's not like he's a toss-in piece now. Guy's on pace for 20 goals and 40 points. And again, I said earlier, a line-driving guy, wherever line he's on, the team gets better. You put him up in the top line with Marchand and Coyle for a few games, and he was dynamite. That's kind of how Frederick's playing right now. He's not a toss-in piece. So you're giving up a first-round selection, which is already a coveted asset for this team, a 19-year-old center who, people can be
it's basically a first-round pick. That's another basically a first-round pick.
And people can be like, well, you look at what Jack Stanika did. He was a top prospect. But Poitras has shown that he's got potential. Maybe he's ends up being a 3C, but there's a lot to like about Poitras' game. Even a first month into the year, I think some guy was comparing him to Sorelli. Maybe he's a 2C, 3C, but Sorelli's pretty damn good at what he does. There's a lot of value there. And you add in Frederick, who's 25, has that coveted kind of power forward ability. Plus, the fact he's on pace for 26 goals. No, not at all, Evan.
No, I agree. And the Frederick thing is interesting because he also adds snarl, which you need. This lineup needs that. He provides it. He is on a track to be that kind of player that people want in the NHL now, where bigger, power forwardy, but also has skill, can contribute, good in their own zone, like good with kind of any situation. He's morphing into that quickly, and it's 2 straight seasons now of him being real good. He's not a throw-in player anymore. He is very much a valuable member of this team, and I think when the playoffs start, you want a guy like him in your lineup in a specific role, thriving, and I think he's again on pace to do that. The center position though is interesting because I have a take on the center position with the Bruins that is kind of new. It's a little bit new, but first, I love HelloFresh. So here's a quick word from our friends at HelloFresh. Quick break in the action to tell you about our delicious friends over at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. A crazy schedule can make it easy to fall back into your dinner time recipe rut, but keep mealtime exciting with over 40 recipes to choose from every week. There's always something delicious to discover with HelloFresh. Turn to HelloFresh Market for yummy add-ons and enjoy the season's limited time fall flavors lineup. It's that time of year, right? Things get you in the mood, like apple cider cake with caramel sauce. All the ingredients come fresh, from the crushed tomatoes to the Italian chicken sausage mix to the Parmesan cheese. It's delicious, and I feel like a chef when I'm doing it. What's better than that? And this is a busy time of year for me with hockey starting up. I don't always have a ton of time, so this recipe makes it quick to enjoy something amazing. So join in on the fun. Go to HelloFresh.com/50Bruins and use code 50Bruins for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/50Bruins and use code 50Bruins for 50% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Now, back to the show. The more we talk about Elias Lindholm, now he's having a down season, right? A couple years ago, he had, I think, 82 points in 82 games. It was a really good season for him. Last year, I think he had 64 points. This year, his production has dipped. I know we don't love plus minus, but plus minus is definitely in the negatives. And obviously the Flames are a team in turmoil, so there's a lot around that team you have to kind of take into consideration. Sort of like Hampus Lindholm with the Ducks a couple years ago. But at the same time, let's say you did get Lindholm, right? And you did make that deal. Is he that much different from what Charlie Coyle and Pavel Zacha are giving you? No, he's not. He's not that much different. And again, yes, you would move Zacha to the wing in that case, and yes, that helps your top 6, but is it worth giving up what you would give up in that trade for? No, it's not, because it's not that much different. And this hits at this point. The only way, I think the Charlie Coyle and Pavel Zacha, this is galaxy brain thinking, okay? Galaxy brain thinking. Put on your thinking caps. Galaxy brain level stuff. Charlie Coyle and Pavel Zacha have played their way and played the Bruins into a situation where at the beginning of the year we were saying, all right, these are good holdover guys, but the Bruins do need to add someone and maybe draft someone. Or then Patra started to come together. It's like, all right, Patra's going to probably be one of those guys, and then you got to either trade for one or maybe you draft one. To me, Coyle and Zacha have played their way into being legitimate top 6 centers in the NHL. And really putting the Bruins in a situation where I think the only way you truly acquire a top 6 center is via the draft. I think that's really the only way you do it. Because think about it. If you're going to trade for a top 6 center, Lindholm's probably the best on the market right now, and he's not that much different from Coyle and Zacha. So you're giving up a lot for that. You're going to get one in free agency. We talk about this all the time. #1 franchise centers don't usually come around in free agency. If one does and it falls in your lap, great. Not complaining, but I don't think that's likely to happen. What's more than likely to happen is you find a way to get a first-round pick either this year or, you keep yours next year for 2025 and you hit on a pick, whether it's first, second round, or wherever. To me, that seems like the way. Going out and acquiring a true #1 center, top 6 center, A, the team doesn't have the assets for it, and B, they just don't need it right now. And I know that's a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, but I think the draft is really the only way at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of compare the Bruins right now, and I mentioned this on a recent podcast with Ty when we were recording, where I almost compare the Bruins and their focus on the center position almost like the Golden Knights before they got Eichel, where it's like they had guys that really elevated and established themselves as top 6 guys, and no one expected, right? Like, obviously William Karlsson scoring 40 goals, but even past that maybe outlier year, I think a very common top 6 guy in that spot. No one expected that. Chandler Stevenson, people were like, what the third
Like,
line,
who is this?
fourth line
Exactly.
guy? I think a very good middle 6 centerman right now. He's probably going to make like $6 million in free agency this upcoming season. So like
Good for
those,
him.
so like those are 2 guys that filled that spot and did a more than solid job. Right, like they were very good with those guys and a lot of talent on the wing that further elevated that kind of forward group. But I think Golden Knights viewed as like, we'll still keep an eye out if the right situation is there, whether a guy does hit free agency, whether a team is moving a guy who's disgruntled or we're trying to dump a contract, we'll be in the market for it. And then Eichel falls in their lap and they push the chips in there. I almost view the Bruins as being in that spot where we've got a pretty good situation right now that people didn't expect with our play down the middle. We've got a lot of talent on the wings that helps them out as well, obviously, but we'll stay the course. We'll keep an eye out. We'll check in on Lindholm. We'll check in when Hurdle gets put on the market. A guy like Keller, we're talking about plenty of other guys that inevitably will be in the same situation. Hell, we were talking about like Scheifele last year, and that kind of did a full 180. These things happen quite a bit, right? Every single year, especially teams that are either staring at a cap crunch or are looking for more fiscal flexibility in the upcoming year. So I almost view the Bruins as being like that. Like they're in a good spot right now. They have a center position that maybe isn't flashy, but is more than doing the job. But they'll still keep tabs, right? And again, I don't think they're going to be overpaying for a guy like Lindholm on the trade market. But if he's in there in free agency and you want to sign him for, maybe come here, you play with Pastrnak, and maybe it's only $7.5 million, what have you. I think that approach where they're operating a lot of leverage based on one, like the fact that Boston's a very appealing market for hockey players. 2, you got a lot of established talent here that you probably want to play with, which is something that Don Sweeney has mentioned multiple times, especially after they signed Pastrnak long term. And they're in a spot where they can continue to kind of peruse that and address that situation in time, knowing that you've got a pretty good grouping in place right now. And it's not even counting like, hell, maybe Potter takes a big jump next year. What do we say next year? Potter's on pace for, 15 goals and 40 assists, right? Like that.
Exactly.
Well. So, again, are they just not going to listen to any talk about any center that hits the market? No, of course not. They're going to do their due diligence, and they think it's a guy that's, in the right age range. Jesus.
The age range.
sound like a boomer there.
Yeah.
Age range, but
they are so angry.
But if you have a guy who's 26, 27, 28, that you can really elevate that group, especially in the upcoming years. Yeah, I think you'll definitely do your due diligence there, but the Bruins aren't in this spot where they need to get one of those guys. It's a spot that I think a lot of teams probably envy being in, where the Bruins are already a very good team, and yeah, they could get better there, but they're not going to, I think, waste valuable assets and resources to do it either.
And the other thing is, it doesn't mean you can't add depth. You can go out and add a middle, a middle 6 forward or a third pairing defenseman. You can do all that. Please don't give up, a first for it. Don't do that. But if there's something like an Adam Henrique, right? Like that's a guy that, teams are looking at. And my guess is someone's going to have to overpay a little bit for him. But if that's at the right price, makes sense. But a true number 1 center, you kind of got those guys right now. You got Coyle, you got Zacha. I don't think we're going too hard on we're being too easy on them. Coyle's been phenomenal this year. Zacha's been great. You got Patra waiting in the wings. Geeky's been solid when he's been at center, and you've got guys in this system and on this team that can play center and do a good job. But again, it comes down to Coyle and Zacha have played their way into it, and to me, I just think as you mentioned, unless an Eichel situation pops up where there's a center who's disgruntled, like P.L. Dubois after this season in L.A. Yeah. Except don't do that. Please don't do that.
Remember those offseason talks, Evan? Thank fucking Christ that didn't happen.
Oh my God.
I'm sure Pierre-Luc Dubois is having a great time though. He's enjoying hockey again.
I hope he is.
California.
I hope he's enjoying hockey in the crazed market that is Los Angeles, California. There's no scrutiny there. I think it says it all that Winnipeg is kicking ass right now, and that dude went straight out the door. So there is that. Again, I don't know everything about that situation, but still pretty interesting one. Yeah, that's that with the Elias
Trade
Lindholm
deadline,
talks.
yeah.
Yeah, that's all we're talking about. We're never going to talk about the trade deadline ever again. That's it.
No,
we're
absolutely
done.
not, Evan.
We're
Nope.
done. We're never talking about it ever again. I go back to, I think a lot of fans are going to clamor for there to be a big move. And I get it, right? It's the shiny new toy. You want to keep up with everybody. But I think the long-term outlook here and the short-term outlook, this team's working. Things are moving in the right direction. Lines are being formed. Of course, you could be a little bit better defensively. And as we said, depth pieces will be available at the deadline, and I think are a smart move for the Bruins to make. But the big Tyler Bertuzzi, Dmitry Orlov type trades, you did that last year and it didn't work. And now you got to, hold on to your assets. And again, but also you don't trade away any pieces off this team either. I think the ship has maybe sailed on trading a DeBrusk or even a Grzelcyk because you're now in the stretch run here, and those might be looked at as additions. But
Right.
We can get into all those things on Poke the Bear and later Bruins Beats. But that has been this first episode of the week of Bruins Beat. Connor, what can people look forward to from you now that you've got the sun in you? You played your golf. Now you're back. You're rejuvenated. You're it's like you've come off a break, even though it was like 2 days. What
Yes.
can people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, we're going to have it covered every step of the way this season. Obviously, even with this break, we'll be looking at a bit of a first half recap. I know it's past. It always feels weird that we always say first, second half because it's only 37 games left. But more or less, it's like the All-Star break in baseball. There's a first half and a second half, just the way it's split up. But we'll look at biggest surprises, the most pressing questions going into the second half for this team of how they get ready for hopefully a long playoff run. We're going to have you covered every step of the way over at Boston.com on all those topics, not just the Bruins, but Celtics, Patriots, Red Sox, everything going on in Boston sports. We'll have you covered there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. You'll be going full throttle over these last couple months.
Without a doubt.
Full throttle. Nothing else. All gas, no brakes. Anyways, that's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners. Have a great rest of your week.